Hello everyone, I welcome you all to the next lecture of our course AGCON 201. In this lecture we will be studying about sources of agricultural finance. As you simply say, फार्मर्स को लोन या फिर क्रेडिट जिसे हम कह सकते हैं लेने के सोर्सेज क्या क्या हैं या मिलने के सोर्सेज क्या क्या हैं. Alright, so this will be our unit 4th. These are the contents of the slides. First one is can say flow chart showing what are the different classification of sources of agricultural finance, what is non-institutional source, what is institutional source. All three are these institutional sources. Then comes share of each institutional and non-institutional source from 1951 to 2002. We'll be updating this data later on. This is just to give you an idea how these sources stand against each other. Then there is a new concept called microfinancing institutions. Then there are suggested readings which you are supposed to read because these are important for understanding point of view as well as from examination point of view. So let's start with our next slide. So the first slide which we have here is, it shows you the classification of different sources of agricultural finance. Broadly there are two sources, institutional and non-institutional. Simply to say, institutional is where you have rules and regulations, okay, and non-institutional sources, no rules. I have money, I am giving it to you, it's my money, my rules. Alright, so there is a lot of scope for cheating you. In the institutional sources, first will be commercial banks, second cooperative banks, third is regional rural banks. All three banks are there for different purposes, but one purpose is same, that is serving the farming community. Commercial banks, that is further classified into public sector banks and private sector banks. I'll be dealing with them individually. This is just to give you a broad idea of what we have in this PPT for you. Public sector banks and private sector banks. Cooperative banks are again classified for short and medium term loans, that is for 6 to 18 months short term loans, and medium term is 2 to 5 year loans. Okay, we have a 3-tier or 3-step structure. At state level we have state cooperative bank, at district level we have district central cooperative bank, and these are packs we have at village level. Alright, and for a long term credit purposes, that is 5 to 20 years, that means this term means if you have taken a loan today, you have to repay the loan within this period. Okay, it is set while this repayment period is finalized while giving you the loan. Okay, this has a 2-tier structure, SCARB, SERDB, this is a new name. This is at a state level, and PCARB, it is at a can say block level or can say taluk level. Let's say in Hisar there are several blocks, that is Hisar, Hasi, Barwala, Agroha. These are different blocks in the Hisar city. Alright, and then comes regional rural banks. Okay, so we'll be understanding the meaning in the upcoming slides. Then there are non-institutional sources. First is big landlords who have a lot of money to lend. Agricultural money lenders, these are specialist people who deal in lending money to the farmers only. Professional money lenders, they do lend money to this is their profession, this is how they run their house, by lending money to people, which might include farmers or other people. Alright, it necessarily is not for farmers only. Then there are traders in the agricultural produce market committees and also commission agents from agricultural produce market committees who give money to the farmers, because farmers sell their can say produce to government through these people. So there is a link between these people and farmers, because farmers year after years come to these people for selling their produce. So the commission agent knows the farmer, and the farmers knows the commission agent as well as the traders. So they have a rapport in between them. So if the farmer needs money in his difficult times, he can come to the commission agent, ask for money, and he will give it to him based on an interest rate, charging an interest rate. And later on, when the farmer brings his produce to the commission agent, he will deduct his loan amount. Okay. Then there are relatives and friends. Always you can always ask from them. This might be with interest or without interest. So this is the source from where I got this information. Alright, this you can just click this link. I'll also provide you with the links in the description of the video. You can go there and look for the information yourself. We'll move on to the next slide. First we'll be discussing what are the non-institutional sources. What do you mean by non-institutional sources? They are not regulated. That means no rules. Okay. Interest rate varies a lot from person to person, from borrower to borrower. Okay, it is my money, it is my choice to whom I can give it for 12%, or I can give it to you for 12% and to the other person for 16% or 24%, like this. Alright, malpractices are prevalent. This system has bookkeeping. Okay, because somebody who is giving you loan, he need to maintain his records. Okay, and you have the authority to check those records because it is you who is going to repay the money. But the thing is, most of the farmers are illiterate. Okay, so they don't know how to do maths. Okay, so there is good chance of the malpractices, such as mal means bad practices such as land grabbing. Okay, and you can say just playing foul with the farmer by touching his record manipulation. Alright, so they can easily give a small loan to the farmer, and the person who is quite illiterate, or can say innocent kind of a person, which most of the farmers are, they can easily be thugged by this method. So now I think you have an idea what are non-institutional sources. The government does not have any kind of control on them. They have their money, they have their rules. Okay, you can simply say it, my money, my rules. Alright, this is, to simply put, non-institutional sources. What are they? We have already studied landlords, agricultural money lenders. These are generally in the village artiya, or you can say there is generally a common term used, village baniya. Okay, he procures or buys produce of farmers, supplies inputs, okay, and also lends money. So by buying the produce, supplying the inputs, he makes a link with the farmer. Okay, so the farmer becomes dependent on him. Generally he'll keep on buying inputs whenever he needs. Farmer does not have money all throughout the year, but he needs inputs all throughout the year, so he keep on buying inputs on credit or as a loan, that I'll repay you later that I'll sell my produce to you so that I can repay you the loan. Alright, repay the cost of inputs that I have bought from you. So what happens here is, village artiya sells inputs, okay, to farmer, plus provides cash for different purposes. Farmer repays by by selling his produce to him. Alright, so this is how it goes. Okay, then comes professional money lenders. I've already told you whose business or whose house work by lending money to different people. Traders and commission agents, I've already told you the meaning of it in the last slide. Then relatives and friends, you can always lend money to your relatives and friends with interest or without interest. So now we'll move on to the next slide. Next will be our institutional sources. As against non-institutional sources, these are regulated. That means they have rules, alright, which are given by RBI, Reserve Bank of India. You have to work under those regulations. You cannot work as per your own will. Alright, then works as per the broad guidelines of the government, or you can say RBI also, more or less the same thing. And there are no malpractices, even practices throughout the country. Alright, even means same kind of practices throughout the country. Proper record maintenance is there. A banker does not have the desire to cheat a person, because he does not own the bank. He is just a salaried person. Alright, he will get his salary without cheating or with cheating, because he does not get a benefit out of it. Same salary. Alright, so this is institutional sources. These are regulated. There are no malpractices. They work under a given set of guidelines. Okay, first one among the institutional sources is commercial banks. Commercial banks are the banks which do banking for the purpose of making money. This is commercial means if you are doing a business for the sake of earning money. Business can be just farming also. There are two types of farming. Let's say business here is farming. One is subsistence, when you are just cultivating the field for the sake of fulfilling your own stomach or own family requirement. It becomes commercial when you are doing it for the purpose of earning money. So banks do business for the purpose of earning money, then they are called as commercial banks. Alright, these are broadly of two types again, public sector and private sector. From the following points we will understand what is the difference. Ownership. Who is the owner of public sector banks? The owner of public sector banks is government. And who is the owner of the government? People. That's why it is called as public sector bank. Okay, because the owner of these banks is essentially people. More than 50% of the shares of the banks are with the government. That's why these are called as public sector bank. As against private sector banks, more than 50% shares are with some private shareholder. The government has 49% or less, or might not have any shares of the bank. By share I simply mean here is, let's say you have let's say this university is being run by the government, so 100% of money is coming from the government. Okay, 100% of the money we are making, the HU is making, is going back to the government. So whatever we are making, every part of it is going to the government. Let's say there is a private university, against some private person is investing the money to make up that university, and whatever the money he is earning from there, it goes back into his pocket. Alright, so the government may not have any say there. Alright, example of public sector banks are Punjab National Bank, State Bank of India. There are total 12 banks as on July 2020. And example of private sector banks, there are many, but HDFC and Axis Bank are some of the prominent ones. Objective of the commercial bank here is, as these banks are run by the rules and regulation, and essentially they are of public sector, so benefit of the society is its prime objective, and profit making is also its objective, because without making profit it cannot keep on running for longer time. Alright, whereas private sector bank, the only motive is making money by providing services essentially. Foreign banks are not included in public sector banks. Foreign banks are essentially private sector banks. Alright. Foreign banks, that means let's say HSBC, Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation is a foreign bank which is functioning in India. So it is not a public sector bank, it is a private sector bank. Alright. Then the employees of public sector banks are essentially government employees. They are hired by the government. These are private employees. They are hired, trained and educated by the private sector or the owner themselves. Profit sharing, whoever has the share, here minimum 51% is with the government. It can be more, it can be 60, 70 depending upon different banks. Goes whatever, let's say SBI made 100 crores of pure profit this year. So based on the sharing of the government, some part will go to the government and other part will go to the other shareholders. These other shareholders can be private people. Alright, it doesn't mean it cannot be private. A public sector bank need not to be 100% public sector. That means it need not to be owned by government 100%. Alright, ownership can be 60, 70, 80, but necessarily more than 50%. Same goes for the private sector. Government can have the shares of the private sector banks, but it is essentially less than 49%. Okay, now let's move on to regional rural banks. You see, first I have written here origin. Why these regional rural banks were needed at first place when commercial banks were already there? They were needed because this committee, All India Rural Credit Review Committee, just read the name carefully, All India Rural Credit Review. This committee was made to see if the rural India was getting enough credit or not. Rural India means the farmers or the village societies getting enough money or enough loans or not. It was done in 1959. What they said was small and marginal farmers were very vulnerable. They were not getting enough loans. Not getting enough loans because the commercial banks at that time were owned by Tatas and other business families and they were run for their own benefit. Alright. So why would they give loan to a farmer who does not even have any money to repay the loan? So they were not interested in giving loans to these farmers. So what happened? This committee was formed and they saw this grievous situation, and after that nationalization of banks was done in 1969. 14 banks that were owned by these industrialists, what was done with them? They were made public sector banks, that the authority was snatched from them and the government overtook its working and all other kinds of assets and responsibilities. Okay, they were made public sector. It was private, but they were made public. This was called as nationalization of banks because the farmers at that time needed money, but these banks were not providing that money. So even after 1969, still the need of rural and farming communities were unmet because of their functioning. What happened was there were already two types of banks, cooperatives and commercials. Cooperative bank had a good reach into the rural areas, but they didn't have enough money to lend to them to fulfill their requirements. Commercial banks were urban oriented and they had a work ethic. They were systematic, quite systematic in working. So a combination of these two was suggested by this working group in 1975, that was chaired by Sri M. Narasimha. They suggested a combination of cooperative banks and commercial banks should be made, and it should be called as RRBs, a bank that has the reach of the cooperative banks and a bank that has the work ethic of a commercial bank. Okay, a combination of the reach of cooperatives and professional work ethic of the commercial bank. In 1975, 5 RRBs, 5 regional rural banks were set up as a pilot project. If you want to get the list, it is in your unit 17 of AGCON 102 course. Alright, I have given you the notes already, you can refer to that part. So what are the features of these regional rural banks? I have already said that good reach and professional work ethic. First of all, where do they get the money from? They get, let's say a regional rural bank is started with 5 crore rupees, okay, then 50% of that will come from the central government, 15% of that will come from the state government, and 35% of that will be coming from the sponsoring bank. In Haryana, we have Haryana Kshetriya Gramin Bank, and the sponsoring bank, or let's say the bank which takes care of all the requirements of this bank, is PNB, Punjab National Bank. 35% of the money at the initial stage will be given by PNB, rest 15% by state, 50% by central government. Okay. In India, currently there are 1.52 lakh offices of RRBs, okay, and in out of which 51,846 are in rural areas. You must be thinking, why only this much? Because it is a rural bank and it has only 30% of the branches in rural areas, rest elsewhere. See, as it was a rural bank, while after its inception in 1975, there were several problems because it was for the weaker sections, small and marginal farmers. The running cost was very high, the deposit amount of each of the farmers was very small, the loan amount was very small. They used to incur losses. It was not a very, you can say, beneficial enterprise for the government. These regional rural banks made losses. That's why its operation was, can say, a little relaxed, that its operation was not limited to its earlier clientele, and they could also now lend money to in urban areas. They can open branches in urban areas, like there is a branch in near Govind Palace, but it is not. गोविंद प्लेस के पास एक ब्रांच है इसकी सेक्टर 15 में, बट इट इज़ नॉट अ रूरल एरिया. ओके, बिकॉज दे अर्न लॉसेस because of working in only in rural areas. That's why their, can say, mandate was changed and they were allowed to work in different areas elsewhere, okay, apart from rural areas. In Haryana there are 666 offices and a majority, 2/3, is in rural areas, and this is the Haryana Kshetriya Gramin Bank, which is the RRB of Haryana. Okay, there are different names. The name does not need to be RRB. Haryana Gramin Bank, Haryana Kshetriya Gramin Bank is the regional rural bank of Haryana. Okay, for whom was it made? As I've said in the beginning, it is made for the rural community. Okay, which includes weaker sections of the societies, SCs and SCs, because they are essentially born poor, resource poor. That's why they need our help to, can say, get out of poverty. Small and marginal farmers, small farm who have a certain limit of land. Okay. Then cottage industries, the industries which are run in cottages, village industries of different types, artisans and carpenters. Every person in the village who is resource poor and who wants to do something is supposed to get loan from a regional rural bank. Alright. How does it work? It collects saving from the from the rural areas and lends money to them also. Okay, 75% of the total credit. This is the main thing. Let's say RRB in Govind Place, or let's say in my village Jevra, that's an odd name, is lending 10 crore rupees in 2000, has lent 10 crore rupees in 2019-20. So out of this 10 crore, 7.5 crore should go to these areas, agricultural areas, agricultural borrowers, marginal small and medium enterprise, marginal small, and medium enterprise. Enterprise means a business. It can be any type of business, any kind of carpentry, any type of, might be a blacksmith or anything. Okay, housing, rural housing, education. 75% of the total credit that is being given by RRB in my village should go to these 4 areas. These are called as priority sectors. That means you are supposed to focus on these areas, priorities of the country. Alright. They were meant to replace the money lenders in the villages and different non-institutional sources, and basically it was to develop the rural economy. Okay. Now comes the third type of banks, cooperative banks. Okay, the word cooperative essentially means working together. working together, we are running something together. This was meant for agriculture and allied activities. I need not to, just for the sake of remembering agriculture and allied activities, just remember what a farmer can do. He can raise crops, all crops of different types. He can raise orchards, he can do beekeeping, he can do fish farming, all right, and piggery and poultry and other type of can say bird. He can have other types of birds also. This is agriculture and allied activities. Livestock I have not included, which is a serious mistake. Livestock of different types. This was meant for agriculture and allied activities. Small industries, retail trade, and retail trade, that means simply, to put it simply, in urban areas we have these shopkeepers. These are called as retailers. So someone, if he wants to set up his shop, he can get a loan from a cooperative bank. Self-employed businessmen in rural as well as urban areas. Cooperative banks also function in rural areas as well as urban areas. Okay, they need not to be in rural areas alone. There is no bank that functions only in the rural areas. They function both in the rural areas, semi-urban and urban areas, in different types of areas. Okay, how these banks provide loan? As I told you in the very first slide, short and medium term credit. First, state cooperative bank, then comes district central cooperative bank, then comes primary agricultural cooperative credit societies. Okay, primary agricultural cooperative credit societies, or you can also call them primary agricultural cooperative societies. Primary agricultural cooperative societies. Okay, but we are talking about credit, sources of credit, so we will be referring it to as primary agricultural cooperative credit societies. Otherwise they can be marketing society also. Okay, they need not to be only credit. Packs can also be used for primary agricultural cooperative marketing societies also. Long term credit, SCAB, or state cooperative agricultural rural development bank, and this is at state level, and primary agricultural cooperative rural development bank, this is at taluk level. Okay, status, current status, this is the latest information I could found. There are 34 state cooperative banks in the country, 363 DCCBs, and more than 95,000 I am saying primary agricultural cooperative credit societies. Okay, this number is changing. Okay, because they keep on opening and closing. You can also access this file from the link which I will be providing in the description. What are the function of state cooperative bank, DCCB and PACs? State cooperative bank simple function is normal banking operation, providing a savings account, different types of deposits, fixed deposits, etc. Working with the checks and can say transfer of money. This also acts as a link between RBI and PACs. See, the main item here is PACs. The main focus point is primary agricultural cooperative credit societies. So this state corporate RBI cannot deal directly. See, RBI cannot deal directly with PACs because they are 95,000. So it has 34 state cooperative banks, then it has 363 DCCBs, and then it has 95,000. So there is a network for managing these PACs. Alright, so providing money, making the money reach to these PACs. This is a network. Alright, so RBI this one, state cooperative bank, act as a link between RBI and PACs. This also supervises, controls and guides the DCCBs. As you can see, DCCBs also come under state cooperative bank. Also help in formation of credit and other policies of the state, because as I said in the very first slide, not in the very first slide, in the origin of RRBs, that cooperative institutions have a very good reach in the rural areas, so they know a lot about the rural economy, what is needed, so they help in forming the credit policies of the कि भाई कितना लोन किस एरिया में हमें सप्लाई करना चाहिए, लाइफ स्टॉक में सप्लाई करना चाहिए, क्रॉप्स में सप्लाई करना चाहिए, इस एरिया में इस चीज़ में लोन सप्लाई करना चाहिए, दीज काइंड ऑफ पॉलिसीज. And also subsidies for working of DCCBs. Alright. District Central Cooperative Bank. Again, this is a link between SCB and PSEs. You can see from this diagram. Normal banking operations, supervising and guiding PSEs. As you can see, DCCBs are above it. Or funds PSEs, funds to PSEs and other societies. Apart from supervising and guiding, how does the money come from? Money comes from RBI to SCB, then to DCCB, then from DCCB to PAX. Alright. Who are the members of these district central cooperative banks? Farming societies, consumer societies, marketing societies, urban cooperative societies, and PACs. These district central cooperative banks, as I told you earlier, PACs, these PACs, primary agricultural cooperative societies, there are different types of cooperative societies in agriculture also. It can be marketing societies, it can be credit societies, okay, it can be consumer societies, it can be farming societies. All right. And same level of societies can be in the urban areas also. That I simply mean is DCCB has many types of societies under it, of which PACs is a major part. Alright. Farming, consumer, marketing. Let's say what is the function of marketing society, consumer society, and farming society. We'll be learning about it in the later in the second half of this course. It will be discussed in quite a detail, so you need not to worry about. Just remember who are the members of DCCBs. Alright. And what do they provide apart from credit? They also provide seed, fertilizer, sugar, kerosene, and other consumer goods to all these member societies. Alright, all of them. Not just credit, all of these things. What are the functions of PACs? This is the main part of our credit cooperative credit model. Cooperative banks. This is the main part because this is concerned with the farmers. Otherwise, it was a structure to bring money from RBI to these PACs. This cooperative thing started in 1904 when this guy Refison, he went to Germany and studied a model of credit there working in Germany, and he brought it that Cooperative Societies Act should be enacted in our country, and that model should be copied from Germany to here, and this model was called as Refison model. Okay, if I remember it correctly, Refison is the name of the area in Germany, or the guy who went to study this thing. I'll be clarifying it later on. Alright, I don't remember it right now. What are the principles on which this cooperative credit societies work? Voluntary participation. Okay, let's say, first of all, let's say how is it formed? Cooperative credit society, it's simply a group of people coming together and bringing some money, that is share capital, and forming a corpus. Let's say each of them brought 10,000 rupees and there were 5 members, so we have 50,000 rupees, and we named our cooperative society as Balaji Cooperative Society. Okay, we have 5 members, we have collected 50,000 rupees, we have named it Balaji Cooperative Society. We came by our own will, brought some money, and how does it work? This 50,000 rupees can be lent to the needy members of the group or outside the group or outside the group. Alright, there is voluntary participation. Limited area of work, let's say this Balaji Cooperative Society will work only in 1 or 2 villages or 3 villages, while see, for managing this 50,000 rupees, or let's say it is a larger amount, 1 lakh, 2 lakh, 5 lakh rupees, there are many members, let's say there are 50 members, they have more than 10 lakh rupees, there needs to be an elected body and for election or for making any kind of policies, each man has one vote. Doesn't matter if one brought 20,000 rupees and the other brought, second guy brought only 5,000 rupees, they will have only one vote each in making all types of decisions. It might be electing the governing body, that is elected governance is there, or it might be making any kind of changes in the policy of working of this Balaji cooperative society. And there is limited liability, that means I'll tell you the meaning later on. Just skip this part because this is not related to you. This is a little of the higher grade. Functions. What are the functions? What does this Balaji Cooperative Society does? It collects funds in the form of share capital. Okay. If there is a society who is lending money to its own members or the other members, it needs to have the money first. Alright, which comes from share capital or from DCCBs. Once a cooperative society is working for a long enough period and its working is satisfactory, these DCCBs start giving loans to them. Alright, and they further give loans to their own members or the other members. Because this Balaji Cooperative Society was made in the village by the village people, so they have quite a good reach in the village. So this money going from DCCBs to the final members has a very less chance of default, very less chance of not coming back. Okay, because there is a lot of moral supervision or a group supervision is there. Savings, they can always open a savings account for the members as well as the non-members. They can easily supervise the end use of credit when they are lending the money to the people they know or to the people who are in the group. Inputs for farming, they are also providing inputs for the farming. Let's say this group, Balaji group, okay, they are not only providing credit. Credit is coming from where? From own share capital or from loans from DCCBs. Okay, they are providing credit by using this money. Plus, what are they providing? Inputs to the members. Inputs such as agrochemicals, pesticides, insecticides. Okay, and they are also arranging for marketing of the produce of the members, because whenever the produce we are marketing is in large quantity, okay, the per unit cost will be less. Let's say each of the farmer was using a tractor earlier, okay, because the size of the produce was small, and now when there are 10 farmers, they are using trucks. So the per unit, or can say the transportation charges are less for trucks. Okay, and because they have such a large amount of produce with them, so any buyer who needs a large amount from very one point only, he can directly negotiate with them. So the bargaining power of this cooperative society is quite big, because they have a large amount of produce with them. They can bargain with a buyer that will be providing you this amount of produce at one point, so it will be easy for you. You need not to run here and there, and you can buy it from here and at this price. So they have a bargaining power. If I am a small seller, I cannot bargain with the buyer because he has 1,000 options like this, but he does not have any many big options where he can get all the quantity he needs at one place. Okay, also it provides consumer goods. I hope it is very clear. They provide funds, saving facilities, and the benefit is they supervise the end use of credit. Inputs they provide for farming, marketing and storage facilities, also consumer goods also. Okay, now we will be going to next slide. Long term credit. This was earlier part was all about short term and medium term credit. Now we will be talking about long term credit. Long term means 5 to 20 years of repayment. It was first started in 1920 in Punjab. Earlier it was called as land development banks. Okay, land mortgage banks. Then they were called as land development banks. Then they were called as state cooperative agricultural Rural Development Bank. This is how it went. Earlier in 1920, Land Development Bank, and in 1974, I think this name was changed to 1974 Land Development Bank. I don't know when it was changed to SCRDB, that is SCARB. What are the functions? Function, earlier it was called as Central Land Development Bank, now it is called as Land Mortgage. Prior to it was called as Land Mortgage Bank. How does it function? It provides loans, long-term loans. For what purpose? Land development. That is, let's say your land is undulated, you want to flatten your land, but it is going to cost a lot of money. Your land has it has a brackish, or you can say it has a salty soil. Okay, there is a lot of salt on the soil, you want to remove it, so you need to add a lot of ingredients to it, not ingredients, a lot of chemicals to it, to make it good enough for farming. So it needs a lot of money. Minor irrigation, that is tube wells or other things. Purchasing implements and machinery, tractor, combines and etc., harrow, mold board plow, these kind of things. Purchasing land. Redemption of old debts means repaying old debts. You have a loan earlier, you have a very big loan transferred to you because your father had a loan and he is expired now, or you might have a 20 years old loan, you want to repay it, so you can also take that. For that you can also take money from the Primary Cooperative Agriculture and Rural Development Bank. Plus also they mobilize saving, that is collecting money in the form of saving from the farmers and then using it to make money by lending further. Alright, wait a second please. So these are the functions, or can say the purpose for which long-term loan is given by the Primary Cooperative Agriculture and Rural Development Bank, and the other details such as what was it called and what are the function of State Cooperative Agriculture and Rural Development Bank. It supervises PCARBs, floats debentures for raising funds, and gives loans to PCARBs for capital formation of farmers. These two are important points. First, it will give loans to Primary Cooperative Agriculture and Rural Development Bank for giving it to the farmers. And what is this capital formation? Capital formation is when a farmer has, let's say, tube well installed after taking a loan, or he has implements, or he has built buildings, okay, he has machinery. So all these things are called as capital. Okay, in financial terms, capital is called as money is capital, but in real terms, capital is the tube well, the machinery, the implements, the other developments you have made on your farm. These are called as capital. So SCARB give loans to PCARB for capital formation of the farmers, or for development of assets, you can also say. Floating debentures for raising funds. What are debentures? Debentures are necessarily long term investment plans. SCARB will say that we are giving debentures of 100 crore rupees, we are floating debentures of 100 crore rupees, that after 10 years, whoever buys those debentures, after 10 years, they will get 10% annual return. Okay, so getting 10% annual return on your money is quite difficult these days, because the money in your bank account is earning only 3.5%, and investing in the share market is quite, where you can earn 14 to 15%, is quite scary. Okay, and it needs a lot of knowledge. So people who have a lot of money, they will run for it, that for each year, let's say out of it I have bought a debentures of 1 crore rupees, I have given this money to this bank, and this bank will provide me after 10 years how much money. Let's say annual, you can just calculate it yourself, 1 crore, and annually 10% return will be there, and there will be compounding of this interest. So let's say it will provide me with a 2.2 or 2.5 crore rupees after 10 years. My money has more than doubled in 10 years, which is a very good investment in the present times. Okay, and people will buy these debentures because this SCRDB, this is a government entity. They are not supposed to fail. The government will not let it fail because a lot is dependent on it. So the money I have given to this SCRDB is quite safe, and this card has got 100 crore rupees by floating debentures. Okay, I have got my money invested, they got the money, they will give it to PCARD, okay, and they will give it to farmers. Alright, this is quite a mess, but it is, I think I have made my point very clear. Next slide. Now we have covered most of the part. Now we will see the contribution of institutional and non-institutional credit. Just see here first, 1951 decadally, 1961, 71, 81, 91 and 2002. A total of these are the institutional sources, these are the non-institutional sources. The total amount of credit that was provided to the farmers by institutional and non-institutional sources, out of 100% of the credit in 1951, 93%, around 93% was given by these people to the farmers. So you can see the grievous situation at that point of time. There were no banks, nothing at all, only 7.2%, that too might be to large farmers only. Okay, then as the time passed, the situation got better, and the institutional credit part rose from 7 to 64% in 91, and again it went down to 57%. There were some reasons and we need not to discuss them right now. And the non-institutional sources part got down and down and down, but still you can see in 2002, there are 20 years more after it. We'll see if I can get data, current data for it. And this was the latest data I could found in a very short span of time. If I get the latest data, I'll let you know, but still in 2002 you can see the situation is quite serious. It's not normal. Alright, 57% is coming from these sources and 42.9% is coming from non-institutional sources. Alright, so you can easily assess, or if you are from a village, you can just ask your relatives how many of your relatives have a bank loan and how many of your relatives have borrowed money from other people, from these people mainly. Okay, village artiya, professional money lenders, traders and commission agents, and landlords. Alright, relatives and friends we don't generally count it, but it is also a big part. Now we'll move on to the last remaining part of our slide, microfinancing institution. Micro means small financing, that means small loans, the institutions which give these small loans. So what is microfinance? See, it is for providing financial services for non-bankable people. For a bank, if I go to can say bank for asking a loan, I am bankable because I have a salary, I am getting a lot of salary, their money is safe with me. Whatever I will be taking the loan for, they know that this guy has a government job, okay, and he'll easily repay the money. Okay, but most of the people in our country are non-bankable because they don't have jobs, they don't have stable jobs who provide salary slips, who provide different kinds of benefits. Most of the country is, let's say, more than 20 to 30% is under poverty line, and as per last year estimates, average farming family in a country makes only 20,000 rupees per year. So you must be thinking how they are surviving. This is the average of the whole country. Okay, so these are essentially non-bankable people. Financial services include loan, which is called as microcredit. Small loan means microcredit. Microfinance includes microcredit plus saving plus insurance. Okay, Where did this idea come from? This idea came from Muhammad Yunus, who formed a Grameen Bank in Bangladesh in 1976, and for this purpose he also got a Nobel Prize. What are the features of it? Loans are of small amount, also called as micro loans, short duration, for a week, for 15 days, a month, 6 months. Loans are offered without collaterals. Collateral means security. Collateral can be, let's say, your jewelry, okay, or can say any other. Let's say you have a bike, you want a loan against it. You have a car, you want a loan against it. Any moving property pledged to get a loan is called as collateral. Okay, rate of interest is quite high in these micro loans, 10 to 30%. Okay, I have provided a link in the reading list. Okay, there is a link, you should go and read it. It is about Ujjivan Microfinance Bank in Haryana, and they provide loan at very low rates, that is 10%. Generally this 10 to 30% loan is annual. Okay, but this is total, but there generally this rate of interest is calculated monthly. Let's say someone is providing loan to you at 5% per month, okay, or 6% per month. So how much it will be? 60% per year. It can be as high as this. Okay, it can be. Don't get frightened, but it can be. Because this is calculated monthly, but I have written here as annual. Okay. Ultimate goal of microfinance is to assist the poor to work their way out of poverty. This is the main thing. Providing them with small loans for short duration with the repayment plan according to their own will to assist them to get out of poverty. How the money is provided, this is the main thing. These are the basic things you have understood out of it, but how the money gets to the poor. First is self-help group bank linkage program. This was started by NABARD in 1992. NABARD is National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development. What is a self-help group? These were essentially started by women in the villages. A group of 10-15 women came together for different types of works. Let's say simple as you might have heard about Lijjat Papad, alright, or different kind of village products. Some women will come together, form a group, and they will contribute their savings. Okay, out of those savings, same as PACs, they can give small loans to their members. Later, after a long period of time, when these groups have been functioning, these self-help groups, they are helping each other. That's why they are called as self-help groups. Okay, for a long enough period, if they have been working and they come under the watch of NABARD, or it was promoted by NABARD, the formation was promoted by NABARD, or they come under the watch of a bank, these, after functioning for a long period of time, these self-help groups can get loan from the banks. Okay, because the bank has seen that they have been working together by contributing their money, they have the work ethic, so they will be easy to give loan and our money will not die. Okay, because they have a group guarantee, mutual guarantee of repayment. If one person takes the loan, if self-help group takes the loan from the bank, each person has a liability. Okay, so they all will be motivated to utilize that money and repay the money as per the repayment plan. Once the group becomes stable, it starts working on its own with some support from NGOs and institutions like NABARD. As I said, they contribute the savings, small loans to members. They have been working for a long time. They come under the watch of some NGO, non-government organization working for the betterment of different types of different parts of the society, NABARD or SIDBI. If any of them, these can say small self-help groups, they were either formed with the help of these three institutions, NGOs, NABARD or SIDBI, Small Industries Development Bank of India. They were either formed by their help, or they have been working and they are now under the watch of these three institutions. These three will take them to the bank and help them in getting loans. Okay. Then comes microfinancing institutions. As I said, in Haryana there is a Ujjivan bank. There are banks specially meant for financing people. Okay, these banks we are discussing earlier were normal banks also. Okay, normal banks. These banks, this is a normal bank we were discussing. Now there are special banks for this purpose only, for lending money to the non-bankable people. Okay, microfinance is their main operation. Just like a self-help group where people come together to form a self-help group, these are called as joint liability groups. These microfinancing institutions lend money to people through joint liability groups. What is a joint liability group? Again, it is a group of 5 to 10 people. This is just a different nomenclature. Essentially, it is the same thing. A group of 5 to 10 people coming together for availing loans. Okay, let's say we are 5 people, we get together and we'll go to this microfinancing institution. Let's just give us a loan, and because you are many people, you are 5 people and you're all taking a loan together, so bank can easily catch one of you guys and ask where is my money. It's not very easy to catch one person who is non-bankable. He might disappear, but if a group of 10, 15 or 20 people is going to the bank for asking for the money, so it is can say quite assuring for the bank that these people are working on this project and they'll be able to repay the money. So it is a good deal to lend them money because there is a mutual guarantee. Okay, the problem here is because these loans are very small and repayment periods are also very small, the interest rate is very high because there is high number of transactions. Small loan you are giving today, it might be for 15 days. You need to make book entries, bank entries, you need to make procedures again and again, so the transaction cost is very high. Okay, absence of collaterals. Collaterals means moving property as a security. There is no security. The person who the joint liability group that is coming together to get a loan is the security of the loan. Okay, this is for very short duration and higher frequency of repayment. That means whenever this repayment plan is already set by the bank when the loan is given, and it has a provision that you can repay the money whenever you have, in how many times you want. Okay, so this is all about microfinancing institutions. And let's see again what we have discussed by far. Let's go through that once again. Okay, sources of agricultural finance: institutional, commercial, cooperative and regional rural banks. In commercial there are public sector, private sector. In cooperative there are two lines of credit. For short term, medium term there are these 3 banks. For long term there are these 2 banks, different purposes. All right, for non-institutional sources these are the sources. All right, so I'll be finishing my lecture here. Thank you very much. This was all about sources of agricultural finance. I hope you get everything that I have told. And in the last slide, let me check it again. These are the 2 links I am providing here. Suggested reading: why PACs are so important. This is a news article, and microfinance in Haryana. This is again a news article sourced from the web. So you are supposed to read these things out, and they'll help you understand what are these PACs and microfinance. Okay, they'll definitely help you understand. Okay, thank you very much. I'll take a leave now. Thanks.